One of the most important skills we're going to talk about this semester is critical reading. And we better begin by looking exactly what we mean by this kind of reading. What we really are trying to get is that you're being analytical or deliberate or careful in your reading. Some people call it a deep or a close reading. We want you to stop and think about what you're taking in and what does it mean and what can you do with it. And when you do this kind of deep reading, just like we do with your essays, you're really looking at 5 different things: the content, the structure, the research and documentation, the style, and the mechanics. By content, we're really looking at your ability, or a writer's ability, to create a new thesis or a new idea, something original, and support it with credible, true, relevant support and details. Structure is really about how writers put those ideas and the support together. What logical way have they put things together? How do they link from one idea to the next? Research and documentation is the inclusion and the acknowledgement of others' ideas. We have really, truly high standards when it comes to academic writing, what we're talking about. We want you to look at lots of other people and then acknowledge with a high degree of skill where that ideas came from. And you do and writers out in the real world do the same thing. They just do it in different ways than we ask people who are doing academic writing to do. But when you look at other people's writing, you really ought to be asking yourself where their ideas come from and have they fairly acknowledged them. We're going to look at how writers use style, how the writing sounds and feels. Do they use the exact right word? Do they use short and long sentences and vary their sentence structure so they don't get bored? Do they sometimes make long and short paragraphs so they don't get bored? Do they make a point not to be offensive so that people keep reading their writing? All those things are important. And finally, we look at the mechanics of writing when we're reading. Do they follow the format that's required for the audience or the purpose that they're doing with? Do they follow the rules of grammar and punctuation so that it makes sense to us? This is all about clarity, to making sure that the rules get across. The most important thing about learning to do a close reading is learning to annotate, actually marking up the page. Most of you know how to highlight and underline, and that's a good place to start. But we're going to talk also about responding to actual writing. When you're reading a piece, note in the margins and in between the lines what's good and what's bad, what you need to know. Really start engaging with the piece that you're reading. Now let's quickly talk about the different kinds of annotations you can make. First of all, you probably want to annotate for comprehension. You're going to run across words and references that you don't understand, and you want to take the time to look them up and note somewhere right on the text using your little pen what that word means or what that references to. You also want to start annotating for understanding. Do you understand the meaning, the message, the thesis statement, the different kinds of support that the writer is trying to get across to you? Take those kind of notes in the margin. You want to also make marks about analysis, you digging deeper into the piece, the what ifs, the how so's, the whys, and the what fors. You want to make all of those notes in the margins and such too. Writers who are reading annotate for imitation. In other words, they see something that a writer's doing, the word they use, a technique, a skill, how they got from one place to another, how they organized their essay. You want to mark things that you want to imitate so that you can become a better writer. And finally, we're going to talk about annotating for evaluation. You're going to start thinking about whether writers make good or bad choices. And so you need to start making those kind of notes in the margin. And as you do this, it's always good to think about the two basic concepts that underlie all writing: audience and purpose. We are all writing to get a message across to a specific group of people, our audience. And those audiences can be big and broad and a wide variety of people, or they can be very specialized, a very focused group of people who share common interest. And that message, it has different purposes. You can be explaining, you can be persuading with emotion or reasoning. And that explaining with reasoning is what we call argument, remember. You just might be writing to explore and see what's out there and to learn new things yourself. But as you're writing, you always have to ask yourself, based on audience and purpose, did the writer make the best decision? And as you practice that with other writers, you need to learn to start asking yourself that very same question about your own